virus, and you too, let's pick it up. I think we left off at Easter morning as recovery was beginning to happen. Let's resume from there, please.
Sure. I remember waking up and the nurse looking down at me and saying, "You're in the Lutheran Hospital at Fort Wayne. Do you know your name?" And I tried to say, "I'm David Henry, child of the one true God." But I wasn't able to speak, and it was then that I realized that I had been intubated and I had tubes in my mouth. So all I could do was nod my head. So I spent about a week alert, but unable to communicate other than trying to point at some letters on a paper. And one of the things I found later that my friends had prayed that I wouldn't be scared and that I would find peace. And I think it's miraculous that week it wasn't scary, and it wasn't even really terribly frustrating. I felt a strange peace, even though my mind was fully functioning and I was unable to communicate. They kept my hands strapped to a bed because with delirium coming so often with sedation, it's typical for patients to pull their wires out and pull their tubing out. Well, I did have enough sense when I was alert not to do that, but they had no way to know that I was in my right mind.
Well, and when you had, when he was awake, he wouldn't fight, but when he was asleep, he would. So
okay.
They kept messaging me that, he had a really rough night because he was fighting and trying to pull things out, so then they had to strap him in. But that Easter, I got the phone call that he was awake, and they sent me a photo, which was the first time I'd really seen him, was a photo on Easter of him awake, and he was really groggy looking, but they didn't take the sedation completely off. They only reduced it at that point, so they just reduced it enough for him to be awake.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask, when did you two know that David was out of the woods, so to speak?
Well, they kept telling me, with every tiny improvement, we had other setbacks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So they would say, this is good, but he's still not out of the woods, or this is still going to be a long haul. And so, but I really think by Easter, when they were able to wake him up for the first time, I really started to have more hope. Up until trying to look at a calendar, Easter was the 12th, and my birthday was the 9th, and that day was really hard, just because it was my birthday, that stunk, but it was also the first day that the kids and I could be out of quarantine, because we were under quarantine, pretty strict. We didn't go anywhere. And so we took a day and went to the Frank's, Lucy's drive-thru soda shop in Converse, because that's a student of David's family that owns it. A family of David's student that owns that. Anyway, we went there, we got a soda, and then we went up to pray at Lutheran Hospital. And even that day, it was still, even they called me when we got home, and it was an okay day for him, but it was still they had these little things, it was this particular thing in the blood work, this particular, his lungs were not clearing. The x-rays were not looking any better, even after all that time. But they just finally, on Easter, when they pulled him down off sedation and actually did a breathing trial with him where they took the tube out, and he actually made it for an hour, which they said was pretty amazing because they didn't think he'd, usually when they do the trials, it's like minutes. So he made it for an hour, which gave us some really good hope at that point. So Easter was a really, really good day.
Sounds like it. Wow.
I remember one of the doctors came in and was talking to me, and of course, I don't know what day it was because they all blur together. But at one point, one of the doctors came in and was talking to me. He said, you survived this. And I remember thinking, of course I survived this. Because I had no idea what I had been through. So the staff at Lutheran was phenomenal for me. Just celebrating with me every milestone, every tiny thing. They would come. My room had windows that looked out onto the nursing station, and people would come by the windows, and if I was awake, tap and wave at me, or they'd give me a thumbs up, or crack the door and say, "You look great today." And I'll take all the compliments. But
he was kind of the talk of the hospital because nobody thought he was going to make it. None of them up there thought he was going to make it. In fact, I got a picture early on of his hand being held by a nurse, and that's the only picture I'd had at that point. And she just sent me, this sweet text, I just wanted you to know I'm with David today. I held his hand, for a little while, and she just sent me this sweet text. And then later, a couple weeks later, she was back again and told David that that night that she was holding his hand, that was the night they thought he was not going to make it through the night. And so she just sat and held his hand for about an hour, just praying and holding his hand, and then she sent me that picture. And if I had known then, we knew that they thought that he wasn't going to make it, but that was a pretty powerful statement for her to make. For a whole hour, she just sat there with my husband because she didn't want him to die alone. And I just couldn't, it was too much.
It's a really powerful thing to have someone tell you that that's what they've done for you.
Yes.
And I said, thank you so much for doing that for me. And praise the Lord, that's not going to be necessary because I'm walking out of here.
David, Michelle, I don't want to wear you out more than we already have, but
oh no, you're great.
Well, Ed may have a quick question or two. I did want to ask, where do you go from here? What's next on the David Henry? I don't know, victory tour?
Well, I came back. I came back somewhat of a local celebrity or something. So many people have been praying for me. I had a parade. Oak Hill threw me a parade, which was amazing. I'm going to be speaking at a church and doing a TV interview, and I'm mostly doing a lot of physical therapy. Of all the things that were supposed to have gone wrong.
Sorry, go ahead. My fault.
You're fine. Of all the things that were supposed to have gone wrong, I'm really quite healthy. My voice is weak, but that gets better every day. So I'm looking forward to resting and doing therapy all summer and ready to kick off a new school year, however that looks.
That's right. Ed, I haven't given you a chance to get in.
I think all we can say at this point is that we thank you for sharing your story with us. It is a truly remarkable journey that you have been on, and thank you for taking us along with you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share. God did a wonderful thing for me, and I'm just thankful. I'm a thankful recipient of people's prayers and His grace.
And Michelle, have you and the family been able to get up close and personal as much as you'd like, and been able to stay away from many issues yourself?
Yeah, honestly, in that time of quarantine that our family was in, I'm pretty sure that I had it as well. Our family doctor was monitoring me pretty closely, but it passed after about 6 days or so, and I didn't tell my children at the time.
There you go.
It was pretty frightening, but yeah, we made it through just fine. Everybody's healthy, and David came home mask-free, COVID-free, no quarantine anymore. It's been nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks again, you two.
Yeah.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Michelle and David Henry. Wow. Ed, amazing.
There's nothing more to say.
Yeah, there really isn't. Thank you for listening in to Good Morning Grand